evening to you all. I'm Martin Logan and welcome to the Irish in the UK. Coming up on the show this week, Irish Heart Coventry Home recently held a very successful display at the Herbert Art Gallery in the city. We'll be meeting a very special couple who's been invited to Buckingham Palace. But first up, it's 20 years since the Northern Ireland Peace Agreement was signed. The Irish Film London have been travelling around England with a film called In the Name of Peace. And recently we caught up with them to find out a little bit more about it.
In the Name of Peace, John Hume in America is the title of the film, and it's about John Hume and particularly his role in educating people in the United States as to how they could take a position regarding the North in a very constructive way.
And of course this is celebrating the 20th year of the peace agreement.
Yeah, the showing tonight here in Manchester is going to be quite memorable in that we're looking back over 20 years of stops and starts in Belfast in the Stormont Assembly, and we're remembering the example that John Hume gave from the 1960s on of steady leadership and constructive politics.
Of course a lot of things went on at that time, but it was groundbreaking news when we had the peace agreement, and so many people was involved in that, like Bill Clinton and Tony Blair. They both put in a lot of time and effort into it.
Yes, there were many strands of engagement, you could say. The Irish government, obviously, and the parties in Northern Ireland, but then you had also the British government and the United States government through its special envoy, George Mitchell, and Bill Clinton standing behind him. So it was an enormous effort on the part of very many people, and it's one that I think we should try to consolidate now in its time of need.
Well, absolutely, and it's great to see 20 years on that the agreement has held and that there's peace in Northern Ireland, indeed in the Republic as well.
Yeah, the peace has held. The agreement itself is under major threat because of the DUP and Sinn Féin's walking away from it essentially. And now is a time, I believe, for a rethink about how people can be encouraged to get involved in politics again, to get real about politics, because this current suspension can't continue.
Now you're the director, of course, of the film. Where did the idea come from?
It came from a previous film I made on John Hume's school in Derry, where he went to school, he and others like Seamus Heaney, and I worked directly with John Hume on that film, and it was through working with him that he gave me this idea that all these major politicians going back to the 1970s he worked with in the United States were fundamental towards the Assembly of Peace in Northern Ireland and the construction of a new political structure there.
Now you're travelling around Britain, of course you're here in Manchester tonight, you've been to London, you've been all over trying to, let's say, show this film to a lot of our Irish community.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm in the middle of a whirlwind tour. I was in Leeds last night, Manchester today, on to Birmingham and Liverpool, and the response so far has been fantastic. I've really enjoyed it, and I think a lot of people are aware that this is the 20th anniversary, and it's quite symbolic to show it to people who may have been first or second generation Irish and who would remember the Troubles and definitely don't want any form of a return to political instability in the North. So it's intriguing to be here just now.
We've organised a two-day academic conference on the legacy of the Good Friday Agreement. So we've got speakers who've come from all over the world, from Hong Kong, from America, from France, who really want to explore what's happened in Northern Ireland in the last 20 years. So we've got some speakers who are talking about politics, history, literature, art, popular culture, just all the ways that Northern Irish society has benefited and been challenged by the political climate that we've seen in recent times.
This is a very interesting subject, isn't it? Because the story has, if you like, swung from one side to the other. The peace agreement has really held up, but in other ways there's been other dislodgements that hasn't held up.
Yeah, and we weren't entirely sure if the Good Friday Agreement would still be in force whenever we initially organised the conference, and to have people that are going to talk about the border, and we have someone talking tomorrow night who was part of the Ulster Unionist Party delegation who negotiated the agreement back in 1998, so to have lots of different perspectives about women, perspectives from a unionist perspective, a nationalist perspective, and to have all of these people sort of coming together, I think is a really unique event that we've organised here at the Irish World Heritage Centre.
Julie, it's great to be back here at the Irish World Heritage Centre again. Now tell me about your involvement here with the film tonight.
Well, we're really delighted on behalf of the Irish World Heritage Centre and the Irish Diaspora Foundation to be able to welcome a collaborative screening with Irish Film London. It's a really great opportunity to provide a wider Northwest audience with access to Irish arts and culture, in particular cutting-edge Irish film and documentary, like this documentary is. It's a really important documentary for the larger history of relationships between Ireland and the UK.
Yeah, and of course it's great to see it here in Manchester for our Manchester Irish community.
Indeed, as you know, Martin, we've got a really vibrant Irish art scene in Manchester, and it's really nice to be able to work with Kelly from Irish Film London to bring more productions like this one to Irish audiences in Manchester and the Northwest over the next year.
Of course, the Irish World Heritage Centre is the ideal venue for something like tonight.
It is. We're right in central Manchester, a little bit north of Manchester, but we're a really accessible location, and we have the venues and facilities to support Irish arts.
Watching the film brought back so many memories of all the people that were involved at the time. And if you get a chance to go along and see it, it's called In the Name of Peace. Now, Dee and Chris Drake run a wonderful organisation called the Toy Appeal, and this is their story.
The Toy Appeal started in 2013, just nearly 5 years ago.
And yourself and Chris has been heavily involved ever since.
Yes, so Chris and I started it back in 2013, and we've been very involved ever since.
Now tell me how it works.
So we collect Christmas toys all year round for children. So we either collect them from people who are donating or from school children who are donating them, or we go out and buy them. We've raised funds with our team and we go out and buy toys. And then in December, along with about 200 or 300 people, we all come together and we make up Christmas toy sacks for 3,000 children in the Manchester and Cheshire area.
That's an enormous amount of children to look after. How on earth do you get so much, toys for them?
I think people recognise there's a need, and I think anybody who realises that any child's going to be waking up on Christmas morning with no toys to open just want to get involved, and they want to support us, and they want to make sure we have toys to give to these children.
Now, how do you decide which children gets the toys?
We take all our referrals from social workers and from schools in the Manchester and Cheshire area, so they will tell us the children that they know of that are going to wake up on Christmas morning without anything to open, and they'll send us their names and their ages, and that's what we use to put together our toy sacks specifically for each child. So each sack is made up specifically with a named child in mind, taking into account any special needs they've got, and we'll make sure that whatever we put in the bag is suitable for that child.
Now, Chris, how do you manage to distribute all those toys?
It's a real team effort, up to prospectively 15 vans, 45 to 60 people, delivering to locations throughout the Greater Manchester and Cheshire regions, so stretching as far as the Wirral up to North Manchester and into Lancashire.
So how do you get so many volunteers involved?
I think through the great work that Dee and the extended network, reaching out to friends, to colleagues, to local businesses, all of whom partake and participate in a great day. Throughout the year, there are different teams and sub-teams who help sort toys, who help create the labels, who help with the distribution piece, and then ensuring that all of the toys arrive at the location in order to sort, hand over to the logistics team, and then finally deliver to the final destinations.
Dee, of course I've seen the sacks earlier on. There's so many toys and so much stuff in there. How do you manage to get hold of so much?
Well, we probably get about 40% of the toys that we need donated. So through either businesses supporting us, or through children donating at their school, or businesses donating for us, or collecting for us. And the rest we fundraise all year. We have a great fundraising team led by Diane Quinn and Sarah Church, who will hold fundraising balls or ladies' lunches to raise funds for us. And then we go and buy whatever we still need to ensure we've got every single toy to satisfy 3,000 toy sacks.
The two of you, of course, and your great team, you've had numerous awards for all the great work that you both do and your team does as well. But tell us about this special event that you're going to Buckingham Palace for.
Yeah, so Chris and I are really thrilled. We got an invite to go to the garden party at Buckingham Palace in May this year. So we'll be going down there and having a great time, hopefully, and not quite sure what to expect. We're both really thrilled to be invited, and I'm sure it'll be one for the memory book. We're very excited.
For people watching us at home tonight, and if they'd like to help you in some way, how can they contact you or make a donation or help you out with the toys?
We'd appreciate any help we can get. We have a website, www.thetoyappeal.com, and we also have a Facebook page and a Twitter page for the Toy Appeal. So please get in touch. Feel free to send us an email. You know, we ask for help in three ways: volunteer time, donate your toys, or donate funds to our Just Giving page. There's three different ways people can get involved, and we really appreciate any support we can get, because this can only happen through the support we get.
We hope Dee and Chris enjoyed their day at Buckingham Palace, and a big well done to everybody who's got involved. You should be very proud of yourselves. Now we're going to take a little break. Welcome back. Now if you've got a story to tell us, or if you'd like us to promote your business, contact me. The details are on the screen now. Now Irish Heart Coventry Home tells a story about the Irish people who arrived in the city in the 50s, 60s, 70s and 80s, and recently they held a very successful exhibition at the Herbert Art Gallery.
Very proud day for Coventry Irish Society. This is the final day of our Irish Heart Coventry Home Oral History Project, and it's been a magnificent month, and it's been a great celebration of the Irish coming to Coventry from 1940 to 1970.
Well, of course you're here, and your display has been on here for the last month at the Herbert Art Gallery in the centre of Coventry. How much interest have you had in it?
Huge interest. The launch night, there were 700 people to that. It was the biggest event they've had at the Herbert Art Gallery for about 10 years. 220 people on average attended each day for the month, and loads of comments on there. There's two boards, one for champions, people who you remember in the community, and there's lots of different people remembered, and then people have left comments about their family and when they came over and their experiences, and there's hundreds of those. Made a huge impact for the Irish.
Through this, you must have got to know a lot more Irish people that's here in Coventry, that's got some kind of a connection with the art collection today.
Yeah, there's been a lot of people come forward with different items and objects that they had coming over, certificates. We've got different uniforms of people with different work, jerseys, GAA jerseys, loads of stuff, and people brought some really interesting things that are all part of the exhibition.
Now Kieran, I know that you've been heavily involved in all this and preparing all this over the months. How has it all gone for you?
Yeah, it's been fantastic. I've spent many hours in Irish people's living rooms, drank gallons of tea and tons of sandwiches, but it's been a real privilege listening to people's voices and their stories, you know. Like, such incredible diversity of stories for migrating to Coventry.
And that, of course, is where the real work starts, trying to get all the information and the photographs together and visiting people.
Yeah. I mean, me and Simon went to a lot of pensioner groups and put a lot of notices in church newsletters, trying to get the community on board. But probably shouldn't say this, but the best way of finding people is in the pub. You're sitting on the bar stools, and the person next to you is a character. They've got a story, and you end up interviewing them, and you get a pint out of it.
Now, you've had a big crowd here today, but I believe you're heading off to Cork next week. Tell me about that.
Yeah, Cork is the twin city of Coventry, and there's a lot of links with the two cities. So we're in discussions about taking the exhibition or taking a part of the exhibition over to the city, and I think it'd be fantastic showing the kind of enduring links between Ireland and England.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the amount of history that you've got here today, you know, when the display is over with, you're going to take it to Cork. Have you got any plans to take it around any other part of England?
Well, me and Simon are discussing about taking it to places in Coventry that maybe wouldn't traditionally be associated with museums. So, for example, the Irish social clubs and the Irish pubs in the city. We'd quite like to take the museum exhibition from there, and then if that's successful, we'd maybe take it to other cities in the UK to kind of tour it around England, really.
When I arrived in Coventry, it was many, many years before I got associated with, there wasn't a Coventry Irish Society, in fact, but I was 16 years old. It was a year that Coventry twinned with Cork, which I wasn't aware of at that particular time, but I went into nursing in Coventry, and it was a wonderful career. It was something I'd always dreamed of doing. It wasn't the dream that I thought it would be. It was very hard work, and you were segregated at times, one or two, but it's the bad things you remember more so than the good ones, you know. But very, very happy in my job, very hard work. It makes you the person you are. I always felt as if I was isolated. I'd left Ireland because many, many reasons, but looking back, I brought Ireland with me in my heart, and it's always been there. Coventry's been my home, but Ireland is my birthplace, and so Cork is, my heart is Cork. And so in that respect, when, like you say, they went to pubs and clubs trying to work and do things and what have you. And so I always looked out for the Irish people that I was nursing and what have you, and I would pinpoint them and do more for them, if you like, you know, because it was like my family that I didn't have around me, you know. And we were a very close family, and that was very sad to kind of be excluded and having to build a life, which is what we did.
I can tell by the smile on your face that you really enjoyed your 60 years here in Coventry.
Absolutely love it. And then David Kearns, I'll jump a few years by, first Irish Lord Mayor. And David, again, I could see that passion in David. So the Coventry Irish Society, it was actually called IUK to begin with. And we had one room in the Cocoa Building, and there was one girl there, and then Kerry Cullen came, a girl who'd come from university to the city, and she was our first paid worker. And again, the passion, second generation, but the passion, we clicked. And 25 years on, we grew. You know, we were able to pull in funding, which was amazing to do. Then Simon McCarthy come on board. Then we kind of escalated, and we got premises in Hill Street, which we were paying a lot of money for. And thanks be to Ireland and the Ireland Fund of Great Britain, the funding came across for the survivors of institutional abuse and all kinds of things like that. We were able to help reach out to people and say, you need your passport, you need your pension, you need somebody to visit you, you need somebody to do your shopping, whatever. We're here for you. We went into the pubs and clubs and found them out. You know, it was just, the men are very, very, they hold back, the Irish men. They're very private. They don't want to be seen to be out there. But when they came, you see, their families were back at home, and they worked on the buildings. They went into the pub for their social side of life. That was their way of life. And at the end of the week, they'd send their 30 shillings home. You know, I worked 12 hours a night at Gulson Road, and my night allowance was 5 shillings a night. You know, you look back now at 5 shillings, but I could live on £0.50 then.
Earlier on, I saw you speaking to the crowd down there, and you spoke with so much passion. You've never lost your Irish or your passion for Ireland, have you?
never, and I never will, I never will, because I think that's made me the person I am today, was because of being alone, having to survive, having to prove myself to my family back in Ireland to say, I'm here since I was 16. Okay, look at me now, 60 years on, but I have achieved a lot in my life, and also I'm the chair of the twinning between Coventry and Cork.
I came here in 1953. I was 16 and 8 months at the time, and Coventry was very good to me and to a lot of other people as well. Some people would say it was one of the best cities in Europe for work and money in them years, and there was about 400 a week coming into Coventry, and the two main counties that came to Coventry were Mayo and Donegal. You will find there's a lot of those people here.
Yeah, and of course the Coventry Irish Society is a great way of keeping in touch with all your friends and people from home.
Oh yes, they've done a great job. David Kern started up the Coventry Irish Society, and Martin and Simon and those people kept it going ever since, and they've done a great job. There is some, like every community, there were some of the Irish people that were down on their luck a bit, and those people helped them out.
And it's great to see today so many Irish people here supporting, you know, the display at the art gallery here.
Oh yes, and I was pleased because they put a lot of work into it for the last 6 weeks, and I was great. It was a great turnout, and everybody's probably got the same story to tell as I have. You know, in rural Ireland in the 50s, there was only agricultural work, and there was some in the, like the police and all those type, but there was no manufacturing as such in Ireland until 1956. So this was the only place to come or go to America or wherever.
Now, you were telling me earlier on, of course, that you come from County Laois, so do you get back to Laois much?
Oh yes, probably twice a year I go back there, yes. And always kept in touch with the county, yes. Yeah.
Is there many Laois people in Coventry?
There would be, as an agricultural county Laois is, I would say there wouldn't be that many. Of course there's some, but there wouldn't be that many.
What great history about the Irish in Coventry. Now don't forget, Henry McGlade is back next Thursday evening at 7 o'clock with the Irish at Home and Abroad, and I'm here at 7:30 with the Irish in the UK, all on Sky Channel 192. Both shows are repeated every Saturday evening between 8 and 9, still on Sky Channel 192. Now it's a glorious day here, so I'm off to see if I can catch a few fish. See you next time. Have I got my fishing rod?